Okay, this is 2:7 and 2:8 ratios and proportions. So get out your notebook and let's take some notes. All right, first we'll define ratio. Ratio uses division to compare two quantities where each representation is read the ratio of A to B. These are examples. Ratios are written as A to B, A colon B, and then it can also write it as a fraction because it is division. All ratios should be written in simplest form, so write that down in your notes. Okay, so we're going to have 11 examples. I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can, and you're going to need them in your notes. So it says, tell whether the ratio is in simplest form. So 16 to 34 is not in simplest form because we can divide it out by 2. So if I divide it by 2, that means I would get 8 to 17, and that would be simplest form of that ratio. 17 to 65 is in simplest form because you can't reduce it. So if you can reduce it, you should. All right, example 3, a volleyball team plays 14 home matches and 10 away matches. Find the ratio of home to away, so write that down. So home to away would be 14 to 10, which is also, divide that both by 2, and you would get 7 to 5. So the ratio, remember, has to be in the correct order. Home has to be first, and away has to be second. Then it says, and you would leave this improper because it is a ratio. Now it says find the ratio of home to all. Well, how many were home? 14 were home. And then all means you would add the 14 and the 10 together to get 24. And then you would reduce that. So if we divide those by 2, I would get 7 to 12. So that's the simplest form of that ratio. All right, now proportion is our next word. So a proportion is an equation, and it's an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. So here is an example, and it's read as A is to B as C is to D. And the denominators cannot be 0. B can't be 0, D can't be 0. So A is to B as C is to D. The cross product property we will be using to solve these proportions, and that says that the cross products of a proportion are equal to each other. So if you have A is to B as C is to D, then AD, that means A times D, you would multiply the cross products, that there, AD is going to be equal to CB. Or BC. So the cross products are equal. And it says you can reduce each fraction, but you cannot cross-reduce on proportions. And that's very important. You can reduce the fraction, but you cannot cross-reduce. So we're going to solve some proportions, and this is the method we're going to use. So we want to write that down. First of all, you have to write the proportion. Then you're going to put parentheses around the numerator and the denominator when there are 2 or more terms, and I'll show you what that means. And then you're going to set the cross products equal to each other and solve for the variable. So in other words, we're going to set up equations and solve. So have that in your notes. All right, example 4. It says write the sentence as a proportion and then solve it. So 22 is to 50. 22 is to 50, so you write that as a fraction, a ratio, as, and that's going to be equal to, as x is to 500. So 22 is to 50 as x is to 500. And now we're going to set up a proportion and solve. So I would do 22 times 500. That's going to be equal to 50 times x, so 50x, and then we solve it. So you get 11,000 is equal to 50x, then divide by 50, and you would get x is equal to, I believe, 220. Check that on the calculator. All right, example 5, you're going to do the same thing. n is to 18, so I write that as a ratio, n is to 18, as, that's an equal sign, 64 is to 72. And then all I have to do then, I have my proportion set up, so then I cross multiply, so I'd get 72n, and set that equal to 18 times 64. And then I just solve it. And feel free to use a calculator on these if you need to. So I get 72n is equal to 1154, and then I have to divide that by 72. Okay, this should be a 2, and then I think I get 16. N is equal to 16. Okay, you'll let me know if I made a mistake on any of these. So double check everything with a calculator. All right, these are pretty simple. Example 6, 7, and 8. So if you know how to do it, then you can go for it and pause this and then check. But I'm going to go ahead and work all of these. So again, the cross products are equal. So 2 times 21 is equal to 3 times x. So 3x is equal to 42. Divide by 3, and I get x is equal to 14. All right, this one we're going to do 5 times 21, so I should get 105 is equal to 3w times 7, 7 times 3w, so I'd get 105 is equal to 21w, and then if I divide by 21, I believe I would get 5. Okay. Next, we're going to multiply negative 5 times 18, and that's going to be equal to 3 times 5a, which is 15a, and multiply this out. You get negative 90 is equal to 15a, then divide by 15, and now we get a is equal to 6, I believe, negative 6. Okay. Let's go on to, I think we have 3 more problems. All right, so example 9, 10, and 11 are a little more complicated. So we're still going to do the cross products. So I would multiply 2, but then when I multiply n plus 30, that's when I use the parentheses. Whenever it has 2 terms like that, then you have to use parentheses. All right, and then we'd multiply the other cross product, which is 14 times n. And then, of course, I have an equation, and I have to distribute, and I have variables on both sides now. So I'd multiply 2 times n, then 2 times 30. And now I have variables on both sides. And what is our rule? We have to subtract one of those variables from both sides. So I'd subtract the smaller one. I'd get 60 equals 12n. And then I would divide by 12. So I'd get n is equal to 5. All right, example 10. Okay, let's see, where am I? All right, so now we're going to do cross products again. So we take the 10 and we're going to multiply it times 2k minus 3, again using parentheses, and times 17k. Then we have a multi-step equation with variables on both sides. I'm going to distribute first. So I'd get 20k minus 30 is equal to 17k. And if I subtract, so I can do several things. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract the smaller k, 17k, from both sides. And when I do that, the k's cancel, so I just have 0 there, which is fine. 0 is fine to have. Then I get 3k minus 30. So then I can add 30 to both sides. And then I would get 3k equals 30. So that means k is 10. All right, let's do the last one. If you know how to do it, you can pause and check your work. 9 times h minus 1, again in parentheses, and then 3 times 2h plus 1. Now I distribute 9h minus 9 equals 6h plus 3. And then I can subtract the smaller h from both sides. So then I would get 3 equals 3h minus 9. Then I would add 9 to both sides, and I would get 3h equals 12. Then divide by 3. This should be 12. Then I get h equals 4. And that's it. So hopefully you've learned about ratios and proportions and cross products, and you'll know how to solve these now when you see them. Have a great day.